So how do we like avoid assimilation between philosophy, ideas we use as, just for the sake of argumentation?
I've got a really beautiful quotation here from Ibn Taymiyyah, which is from Minhaj al-Sunnah. I haven't actually said this before to someone. He says, وَأَمَّا نَفِي الْفَلْسَفَةِ مُطْلَقًا أو إثباتها فلا يمكن. He says that if you want to kind of negate philosophy altogether, or if you want to affirm all of it, then either of those two approaches are not possible. Yeah. He says, إذ ليس للفلسفة مذهب معين. So it's not one particular. It's not like one school of thought that you can just. I'm going to share it right now for the Arabic-speaking audiences, and they can hopefully translate it, because a lot of people they argue on lines, and they get these kind of quotations from Shafi'i translations. I'm going to tweet this now. I put it on Twitter. Okay, it's very nice. Check it out, inshallah. Is that right?
Yeah, it's fine.
Thank you very much, my brother. Absolutely. First, we have to define what philosophy is. Yeah, because when in the medieval time period, when the ulama were talking about al-falasifa, they were talking about Ibn Sina and his followers. Anyone who knows, who reads the falasifa, that's what they're talking about. They're not talking about. There was some discussion about is mantiq halal or haram and things like that. But at the end of the day, right now, it's one of those things where, first and foremost, if you want me to bring quotations from Ibn Taymiyyah and whatnot, we have those, that he allowed it. And he even, in many different places, Minhaj al-Sunnah, al-Radd al-Mantiqiyin, he says some people require, he said this, some people, I'm paraphrasing here, but I've got these kinds of quotes. Some people require philosophical arguments. For them, you have to give it to them. Yeah, the types of arguments you give them are philosophical, because it's like going into a fight, a gunfight, with a knife,
with a pencil.
Honestly, it's like, if it's ridiculous. I'm actually surprised that we're even having this discussion. It's what it's like is this. Like, let me give you an analogy. Like 25 years ago, MMA started. 1994, I think, is the first time MMA started.
Yeah.
And they had UFC 1. UFC 1 was with Hoist Gracie and all of that, and he won even though he was quite small, he beat the bigger guys.
Yeah.
Shamrock. And
there's no weight categories.
yeah. I don't know how the weight categories work, and it was like a one continuous round or something like that. I can't remember exactly what the rules were. But the mixed martial arts had changed forever. Everyone knew now what was effective and what was not effective. It took about 20 years to find out, and we found out what was effective and what was not effective. We found out grappling, BJJ, Muay Thai, freestyle wrestling, or Sambo even, these things are very effective. Some aspects of Taekwondo, they were effective. Some aspects of karate were, not all of it, were effective. The things were not effective were the things that were not effective. They're people that are not doing now. So if you want to be an MMA fighter, you have to learn now. You have to learn, for example, BJJ, you have to learn freestyle wrestling. You have to know some base, you have to know, at least if you are a striker, you have to know how to anti-grapple. You have to. If you don't, you're going to lose. Simple as that, really. And now, if we're saying to the du'at now that you want to do da'wah and you don't want to know the basics of philosophy, or at least how to deal with shubuhat philosophically and how to answer or go on the offensive philosophically, it's just like getting a fighter to go into an arena like MMA or something like that, not teaching them grappling, giving them one-dimensional type of
do taekwondo,
and then go into the ring. They'll be finished straight away.
Yeah.
And what it is now is that at the end of the day, we have to act strategically, because the maqsad here, the objective, is to لِتَكُونْ كَلِمَةُ اللَّهِ الْعُلْيَا, that we bring Allah's word and make it the highermost. This is the strategy. If in a strategy of war, I'm sorry to say, back in the days, when back in the days, right? When strategies of physical war that were taking into place, people would do things that were most conducive.
Yeah.
We're not going to put ourselves in a position where someone's going to come and ask us questions to do with philosophy or philosophy of science or moral philosophy. And these are the main questions being asked against Islam today. And the one thing we can do is respond by saying, but Islam gave women rights that they didn't have before. Polygamy was limited from unlimited to 4, or that, for example, one of the talaq is this, and or this issue, or hijab is this issue, and we're answering
pheromones when wearing the hijab.
It's been for me, it's been unsatisfaction. I've been dissatisfied with the whole thing. So we have to teach any dua that want to get this dawah game now. If you want to bring it into the analogy of dawah, you can't do it. Right now in the 21st century, I would even go as far as to say you'll be unsuccessful if you don't have this grounding. You will be unsuccessful.
Okay, so that's obviously something that we can see when you're involved in the arena. You're directly there.
Yeah.
But would you say there is a gap between, say, the older generation who maybe have just seen stuff like Mohamed Hijab using the Bible, just refuting, and then also just other people just using the Quran and just speaking to others, and then not really realizing that actually this issue is far more prevalent at a grassroots level than it was 20, 30 years ago. At a grassroots level 20, 30 years ago, philosophical arguments against Islam, or these types of hardcore atheistic narratives, they hadn't really penetrated. So would you say that, again, we're not pointing fingers here, but we're saying it's almost like, to really understand what you're saying in terms of the natural selection of ideas that happens within the MMA of the dawah, you have to feel the pain before you realize. And it's very comfortable sitting in say the Middle East, and you're not affected by any of that, and you're kind of like, well, why are you doing that? Like, you're not in the thick of it and you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you said it perfectly. It's only when these same individuals, and I must say from my own experience, is exactly how you said it is, because I've known people that were, let's say, very conservative, maybe Salafis that are, associated with it, and that have this very strong stance against philosophy and stuff like that. And they say it's against the Salaf, and Imam Shafi'i would hit with the shoe and this and that. They're taking everything out of context. But even though a Shafi'i wrote a Risala, which is basically it's a logic book.
And I think this is very important. This is actually technically a fallacy of equivocation. So if I start having a heart attack right now, I'm like, is there a doctor in the house? And Hijab says, I'm a doctor. And I'm like, all right, help me. I've got a PhD in sociology. I'll be like, no, not that doctor, medical doctor. It's a fallacy of equivocation. Repeatedly equating philosophy with kalam is the very problem, right? The basic thinking about thinking, something which is very Quranic, something which is very clear that the Muslims were doing for hundreds of years, quite loosely.
I said this to Hamza the other day. I said to him, how Dawkins, famously said, Darwin allowed us to be intellectually satisfied atheists. I think if Salafis had to say the same thing, they'd have to say Ibn Taymiyyah made us intellectually satisfied Salafis. And the reason why is because he delved the very
I like that.
Think about it.
I like that.
Look, who before Ibn Taymiyyah did what he did? Only Ahmed ibn Hanbal.
Well, absolutely. But also
after the Sahaba, right? No, he engaged with it. Okay.
Not only this, if we take his works, rahimahullah, and we actually rip off the name and just go post it through someone's letterbox, they would actually say, this is pure kalam. This is pure philosophy.
Bro, it's in the philosophy department. You go into books, go to most universities. His mantiqiyin and all that stuff.
You
see this deep philosophy, man. From that angle, these guys, the problem is they don't even know what it is. They know what they don't know what philosophy is.
And it's very easy to dismiss these things until, and this is the thing, your child comes back from school and says something, and then you're like,
that's what happens. They come to realize that. We've been around the country, and we've been in other countries that are in the West. After a couple of years, conservative Muslims, or whatever you want to call them, ultra conservative, don't want to engage with outside, however you want to brand them, After a while, they'll be knocking on your door. And that happens. In the beginning, it says haram, blah, blah, blah. Wallahi, 2 years later, they'll call him and say, look, my son, he started saying things like LGBT is not, how do we argue with that? Okay, if you didn't argue with me about whether philosophy is haram or halal 5 years ago, you would have been fine. your son would have. I'm not saying your son wouldn't have gone that direction, Allahu Alam, but you would have known how to deal with that situation.
Yeah.
It's the fact that you've wanted to keep yourself ignorant on something that is so pertinent that has made you fail in this.
Well,
regard.
it's kind of like this, you know.